Behind every meaningful change, there is a woman who dared to lead with purpose. In this episode of Women Who Changed the Equation, I'm honored to welcome with me Sheikha Sarah Fadhel Al-Sabah, founder and chief foresight advisor at Futuresmaker, a visionary leader in strategic foresight, policy translation, and human-centered governance. Sheikha Sarah has dedicated her career to shaping the public institutions and driving meaningful change in Kuwait and the region. Her work bridges strategy, innovation, and the human experience, demonstrating how foresight can transform complex systems into opportunities for progress. Today, we explore her journey, leadership insights, and her perspective on technology, and the evolving role of women shaping the future. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm so happy to share this experience with you and your
It's my
viewers.
honor to be with me today. If you want to start with your journey and the person behind the leader that we have today, what shaped your journey the most?
For me, what shaped my journey is to always have a sort of care, empathy in the world, wanting to see change and transformation in the future. And that has shaped how I view my career, how I view leadership, and the evolving role that you have as you go on. As women, we know that we always have these phases in life, and those phases you change and evolve and develop with time. And I think that's shaped also how I direct and I readapt my career.
And if you want to come back to your thinking during this journey of your career and even your personal life and your contributions to what you have done in other aspects of your journey and leadership, what shaped your thinking the most?
I think it's always to put people at the center. I think whenever you make a decision, you always have to think of the impact it has on your society, on your community, and not just only on yourself, because of course you need to prioritize yourself. As women, we know that we don't always prioritize ourselves, but what's wonderful for me at learning as we go along is that I had to learn how to really keep that softness of being a woman and adapt it to be in a high-paced career oriented, to be purposely driven, always on the go, always thinking forward, future. And that's shaped how I view and think. Very systems thinking adapted to empathy. Because I think you can't go anywhere without empathy first.
For sure. And if you want to come back to the moment when you realized you're in a leadership track, not just your career, when was that and how also it changed your perspective on how you drive your career forward?
I think you don't realize, that you've gotten to that point of being in a leadership position until there's these small moments. When I was in rooms where decisions were made, where visions were implemented, or created to be implemented, those were the times where you really realize what your decision, your impact, whatever you do every day, it makes a difference to people on a daily lives, and it impacts how society, how your community and your institution will develop. And that created, a great responsibility in my hands.
Okay, coming from the responsibility, you work in an environment where purpose and pressure coexist. And here we know that resilience is very important. What shaped your resilience and where did it come from?
I think, first of all, for me, my resilience comes from my family, from my community, and from, putting purpose first. I always, go from a place of values, asking the questions, what's important? How is these decisions and choices going to impact the long run? I'm always thinking about the future and not just the short-term decisions that you take every day. And that's what shapes, where those little nuances take place in your life.
And if you want to go back to the institutions that you help shape, what experience changed the way you see the institutions that you serve and the role that they play in the people's lives?
The role of institutions is that it's an evolving role, and at the base of that, it's trust. And I think when people lose trust on institutions, it's not that institutions are wrong or they're not technically doing the right thing. It's just when they create that distance between themselves and the people they serve, it creates a huge gap. And then you lose credibility. And I think that's something that really lasted with me and impacted the way I make decisions moving forward and the way I see institutions in itself. That's why I always think that you have to place the human at the center of all those decisions that you do.
And I love that. And it shows actually how you adopt like people first approach.
Yes, exactly.
In everything I'm asking, you always talk about the trust, the people. And that's what makes the governments and the institutions successful in what they're doing, to serve their citizens.
100%.
And now if coming back to the career and to the person behind the leader and to the ladies who are starting their career, if you want to come back to your early career phase and describe it by one sentence and how it meant to you, what would it be?
I would think for me it was stepping in rooms that I wasn't prepared for and taking ownership of all that I do, making choices, taking ownership of your work and evolving yourself, always upskilling, learning, growing. And I think when you have that mindset of being open, curious, understanding that there's always going to be change and adapting to that, I think that's how I would see my career. That's always adapting and pivoting and moving forward.
How did it feel the first time you were in rooms where decisions were made? How did it feel for you?
Look, in the beginning, it's intimidating because you realize that there's great responsibility. You're in rooms where these decisions will impact not only how your society and your citizens see you, but how the world will see you. And that's such a big responsibility. And I don't think you can take that really lightly. You have to always put that in mind and keep your purpose at the center.
And now if you want to, were you the only woman in that room, when you started that, or you had other women supporting?
I had great mentors. I can give you one great mentor. She was Sarah Diane. She was such a great mentor to me in the sense that she guided my progress towards my development of my career in the early stages. She always told me, you have to go and take that chance and put me in places where there was visibility, even though you felt not prepared, but taking that, that step forward. And that's what I would tell people and myself in my early career. Have the confidence to raise your voice, to ask the questions. There's no wrong questions. And move forward. Even if you don't think you're prepared, take that step.
Yeah. And that thing that you had to unlearn to become the leader that you are, because you said you go to rooms unprepared, feeling intimidated, and sometimes you just have to go for it, even if you're not 100% sure you can really make it in these rooms that you're stepping into. What's the thing that you had to unlearn to become the leader that you are now? Or things?
Yeah, that it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to do the wrong things as long as you learn from them and do something better, evolve from that point, And also, I think when you learn by experience on the ground, you develop so much quicker. For resilience, adaptability is so much more enduring and long-lasting.
Now, if you want to define the leadership in your own terms, how would you define it?
For me, a leader is the person who gives you orientation. It's a director. They direct where you're going, the path that you're going to take. But without empathy, without human-centered understanding, you can't take those people with you towards that path. So you need both empathy and you need leadership in the sense of orientation, orienting and directing that institution or your team or whatever, your life, towards whatever possibilities there are, because there's infinite possibilities for the future, right? But without that vision to go forward and being confident in that vision, because that's the only way that you make, it makes meaning, to sense, you make sense and meaning in an institution and you guide people towards that direction.
And that's what differentiates leadership from management.
Exactly.
when we are leaders, we have to direct, we have to be
100%.
provide the vision to our team and people. So from leadership, I want to go to the principles, and like the one principle that you wouldn't compromise on.
For me, it's integrity. I think without integrity, you cannot. In the end of the day, you only have your reputation that's lasting. You know, your legacy that you have, and integrity is doing what's hard, even when you know it's uncomfortable, even when it's at the risk of you not getting what you want. But having that integrity and doing the right things, even when everyone is watching, is easy. But when no one's watching and you're doing the right things, I think that's what makes you, you know, true to your values. And for me, that's so important.
I cannot agree more. I think integrity is one of the like most important principles and values that we have to have as people and professionals at the same time. So now we mentioned about like the decisions made, or the rooms where decisions are made, and you being in these rooms. And sometimes the stakes are high, right? Yeah. So when the stakes are high, how do you, as Sarah, make the decisions? What guides you?
For me, first of all, when things are high pressure and you're in high stakes environment, you need to take a step backwards, you know, slow down the pace, even though you need speed to make the right decision. But once you take that step back, and always ask a question, how are people going to experience this? So whatever decision you make, it's going to impact people, and you need to elevate people towards that a certain direction. So that's why whatever your decision, it has a huge impact, and to always be aware of that and guide people in that manner. And for me, that's what I do. Take a step back and ask the questions of how you're going to make this better for the people.
Okay. And one word we always like associate with women who are leaders, like they are strong women. So like also taking a step back with you.
Yes.
And as a woman leading in policy and strategic foresight, what does strength mean to you?
For me, strength is empathy. It's putting yourself in other people's shoes, and also, being that voice of guidance towards others. And I think that's not always easy to navigate when you have empathy and authority. So I think there's a delicate balance between the two. So without empathy, you cannot lead and bring people towards your path. And that's where empathy comes in. Without empathy, you cannot go into authority.
I agree. And I think also that like actually being strong is to keep this side of us that's empathetic, that's
100%.
but also at the same time learn when you need to be firm and
yes,
be,
guiding
and
thin
providing.
Line.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you.
I think the strength is to keep both. And
yes,
to keep both,
there's a balance.
Not lose the sides to the favor of the other side.
Exactly.
Now we all face like hard moments when it comes like to making decisions and leadership, being in the leadership position. What was the hardest like moment in your leadership journey that you navigated, and what did it teach you?
For me, I can talk about a recent experience,
Okay.
and it's we're going through a huge organizational restructuring. At the same time, we're coming up with strategic, the strategy for the next 5 years. Combined together, it creates a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, I can say, from everyone in the institution. So what happens is that when you're confronted with fear, there's resistance. So that was something that was really a hardship. But how do we navigate that? As again, we have to be it's a very subtle, delicate balance that you have to take a step in another person's shoes. So the most of the people, when they're like, imagine an institution that was 11 sectors became only 2 sectors. People were scared. They have they don't know what's their role in this new structure, what's their position. So there's a lot of fear, and when there's fear, there's resistance, and then it's hard to navigate leadership and bring that transformation to the organization. I think when you listen to people, give them a space to feel comfortable in those changes and listen to their concerns. And then you transform those concerns into opportunities to do something new, to transform an institution to something more resilient, more forward-looking, more future-oriented. And that's where people, the resistance start to crumble and the people become more, accepting to hear what's the new change that's going to take place. And that's when transformation occurs. So it's like what you were talking about before, there's always a delicate balance and there's a lot of nuances. And we have to navigate those kind of situations with delicacy, with empathy, and most of all with being, to listen deeply and authentically to people. Not just listen because we want to, in Arabic we say mujamalat, we just want to, tell people, okay, it's okay, and do that fake, putting a cover onto the concerns, but really listening and really opening the doors to developing and changing and creating a platform where people can express themselves without fear of repercussions. I think that's very important.
Especially when it's a major change that's occurring in the organization or the institutions.
Exactly.
Okay, and now in Kuwait, like in the government, I know there's at least like 400,000 women working in the government sector. So there's a lot of women, the women are involved in the decision making, but also in the execution of these decisions. So how do you see the role of women shaping the evolution of the institutions in Kuwait and the region, specifically in these times where we're seeing major changes happening?
I think women have a natural role as a leader. And I think people overlook that a lot or undermine it a lot.
Maybe they want to overlook that.
Maybe. But I think when women enter, power centers, they change that power center from the inside. And those restructuring, reshaping of that power centers take into account all these small things that make change and transformation important, especially on the day and time that we live in today. We live in a world that's completely different than it was, like even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And I think the role of women in those changing and reshaping the institution, it's very bringing in more inclusivity, bringing in more a human-centered, a heart-centered situation. And I think that's so important for us as a society as we move towards uncertainty, technological disruption. There's so many geopolitical situations. There's a lot of unsettling things going on around us. And I think a woman's nuance and care and perspective can really guide change and leadership and navigate those uncertain times.
Although maybe the perception of women is the opposite
100%
of handling such situations, but I believe it's not the case. I believe women are born to lead when it comes to uncertainty and disruption and high pressure, because they are born to create in these moments,
I think it's also the woman's multitasking. We're always as a center of a household, as a center of a community. So this woman's natural ability to navigate change. We're always in the center of change.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes women very strong as leaders, and especially at these times.
And they're very adaptable. Like I see a lot of women like moving countries or 100%. Like going into new environments. And they're very adaptable because, as you said, they naturally, by design, they come like
like imagine a woman, a mother with all these kids, and then you have to do what you have to do, but you still have to navigate all these kids and their needs and your husband's needs and your parents' needs and your, so you have that ability to take in all those multi-pressured from, that's coming in from different areas. At the same time, you keep the household all together, united, and reassured. I think the woman gives that reassurance.
True. Coming back to the public sector, how do you define the sustainable leadership, not only environmental terms, but how institutions endure, evolve, and support societies over time?
I think when you take things, like especially institutions, because in institutions we get lost with the bureaucracy of things. I think when you take things from a people's perspective and take another perspective that's not traditional system, institutional thinking, you need to take things in a human-centered, purpose-driven, vision-aligned manner of way of seeing things. And I think that's how you can endure, because institutions, when people experience, either employees or people coming to an institution for a service, in the end they need to feel that they feel that that whatever they're doing there, they felt heard and seen. When they don't feel heard and seen, that there's a huge gap, and then there's mistrust with institutions. And that's where the institution will, even if they're doing nothing wrong technically, what's happening is that they're going to lose the trust of the people. And without the people's trust, you have no purpose.
True. And you cannot really move fast in anything that you're supposed to do.
No, 100%.
That's why the digital transformation, the center of it, the center of focus is the citizen, the users, the people are benefiting from the services of the institutions. Now, coming back to the government communication, the trust of the people, and how we communicate as institutions, from your experience, what's the thing that's most misunderstood by the people when it comes to government communication?
So most people, they view government communication as just communication, messaging, information, delivery of information. But in actuality, government's role is to create meaning within those communication.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's what makes the difference. Meaning, to create trust, to create transparency, and to guide people in a way where the communication is not misinterpreted. So it's clear, concise, purpose-driven, vision-aligned. All these have to come together, hand in hand. But when you just state out communication scripts, you lose the meaning. And that creates loss of credibility, loss of trust. Because as we live in a time where hyper-technology, anyone has, information just spreads like a wildfire, fire, sorry. And what happens is that when people feel that they're not, getting the right information from government, they'll find other sources of getting information.
Now, we talked a lot about the trust of the people and the communication of the government and the institutions, bringing the meaning. Now the buzzword that everyone is hearing and we're discussing the whole time, we discussed even earlier, which is AI.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you see AI now helping the institutions into building trust, or maybe the opposite? So how do you see AI into the equation of building trust of the government with their citizens?
I think, AI, it's a neutral, you can call it a neutral phrase. It's not the AI who's going to bring the trust, it's the governance. So if you take AI in itself, it's a tool. And that tool can either be useful or create more uncertainty. And I think when we put the people at the center and the experience of the service, how you're going to create public service that is directed to the people, using AI is such a beneficial thing because it's an end-to-end experience that's personalized, that's created, for the people, by their requirements, their needs, their expectations. I think that's where the benefit of AI comes into place.
Now, as Sarah, from your personal perspective, what's the most that excites you when it comes to technology and AI in specific, the advanced technologies now in Kuwait and the region?
I think what's so exciting where we live in and how we're living is that we have the chance to design the needs of our people using the tools such as AI in a manner that's very personal to the demands of our nation and our people. And that's beneficial to all sectors. You can have it in media, you can have it in the finance, health, everywhere. When you have that experiential experience for the people, and it's personalized to what their requirements, you come out with something that's such a positive experience and beneficial for the everyday person. In the end, we don't want to have a lot of red tape and complicated procedures and processes. We want to cut those inconvenient processes, and that's where those kind of technologies, AI including, benefits us.
Now, Kuwait, we are seeing like a lot of changes, not only on the like org charts and the different entities, but also in adopting and accelerating the digital transformation journey across Kuwait and multiple sectors. Where do you think Kuwait has the potential to leap ahead the most, given the current situations now?
I think when we have such a great opportunity, since it's it's a raw environment, to build it from the ground up and design it in a way that's aligned to our values, aligned to have the ethical guardrails up, to bring in all the elements that we need, creating that public service experience for the citizens and the residents. But at the same time, you have an opportunity to cut all those small, the changes that you needed to do, these implementation that you had to go through, and you can just jump to the next level where you're actually doing that personalization. You're putting all those AI services onto the platforms already, because our platforms are still raw. It's just being built.
And we can learn from the region also.
100%.
What happened in the region. We can have the lessons learned and benefit to even accelerate further our
100%.
Our digital transformation. Now, from AI and the different technologies that we are hearing, we started recently hearing agentic AI. How, I'm not sure if you started using AI agents, but how do you see it also defining like the near future in Kuwait and the public sector in specific?
I think it's you can what do you call it? You can't say that it's coming. Like, we can see it coming, and it's going to be implemented. There's no doubt. It's a reality that we have to embrace, and I think it's how you embrace it to suit your institution, to suit your services, is what makes you your organization more agile, more efficient. And I think it's part of our package and process of being modern and developed public sector.
What do you fear the most when it comes to AI and adopting these advanced technologies, even agentic AI, with no proper governance, I would say, like in Kuwait specifically, and the region? Because if you notice, like in the region, we are adopting more like innovative approach, like I would say innovation and speed over governance, while in Europe maybe they are adopting like structure and governance over innovation. So what do you fear the most, given your experience in like strategic foresight and policy and the governance at large?
I think it's essential to put ethical guardrails, to not take people out of the equation. So you have tools, and they should be seen as tools. Of course, they're excellent and innovative tools, but without having those protection of and judgment made by humans, I think that's where you can have unfortunate situations. So I think when we need to adapt our legislation towards those ethical guardrails and judgment, human judgment.
And coming back to the leaders, especially in these times where like we're foreseeing major changes in technology, even in geopolitics in the region specifically, what do you think leaders need to adopt the most so they can stay relevant in these times?
I think you said it in one of your questions, learning and unlearning. You asked the question about unlearning. I think leaders need to be learning, unlearning constantly to grow. I think you need to be digital literate. You have to. There's no question about it. And you need to be very embedded in your purpose, having the vision always as your true North Star, and being resilient and adaptive to all situations, especially navigating uncertainty. I think that's where a leader will either make it or be out of the equation, 100%.
Yeah. And like now we are hearing transformation all over from all the leaders almost. But from your perspective, what's the difference between real transformation and cosmetic transformation?
So that's such a good question, Yasmine, because it's true that we all want these buzzwords and we all want to say that we're making change and we're transforming our organizations. But in the end of the day, are those transformations going to endure? Like you said, is it sustainable for the future? Is it long-term thinking? And that's where the cosmetic, it looks nice and packaged pretty, but in a substantiality, there's no substance. And when you have real transformation, it might take a bit longer. It might be more difficult and uncomfortable because you're asking the hard questions and coming up with creative solutions for them. And I think that's where you have to make that different. That's where the differentiation will come.
Absolutely. And I think also in these times where like speedy impact is required, specifically like when it comes to leaders, they are asked or required to be providing like impact fast. How do you balance between quick wins and real transformation that requires more time to really to have the right impact into the services or citizens or even like internally as the institution level?
I don't think that we should as leaders think of just box checking, like thinking, oh, I'm just going to tick these boxes and everyone will be happy above me. No. And especially you're not going to make the people above you happy. You're not going to make the people below you happy. You're going to create a lot of unsettlement and lack of trust because we don't see you as credible leader. So I think that where you have to really focus on, yes, it might take a bit of time, but you need to really think long term. I don't think you have to be very future oriented. And from that future point to where do you want to go, do a design backwards. See what's the steps you need to take to get to that destination. And that's not always easy. It might be uncomfortable again. We're talking about leadership is not supposed to be easy and it's not supposed to be comfortable.
Now, coming back to the changing that's happening, and we are foreseeing a lot of changes in the institution, not only at the organizational level, but also sometimes at the strategy level. Sometimes leaders change and the strategy change with them. We hear that a lot. How do you think, and we know this is not the right approach when it comes, the strategy should be fixed.
Yeah.
It should be guiding whoever comes into leadership of any institution. How do you think we can fix this, but also how do we ensure that we have the right strategy in place that can guide any leader who comes across?
I think when your strategy is institutionalized, so there's fixed milestones, fixed quarterly reviews and set KPIs and agendas, whoever is executing them, leadership changes, are still going through. They're still on the working plan, going through each, quarterly reviews, milestones, and reporting on it. Of course, those kind of working plans should be flexible for changes and adaptable for, as you know, the region, the geopolitical situation, technological disruption. we have a lot of things going on, but at the same time, certain things should be fixed guidelines for the people. That will be milestones, KPIs that are fixed all the time, but adaptable to changes that would takes place, be it technology or geopolitical situations, etc.
Absolutely. And I think we should we should normalize this in Kuwait and the region.
Yeah.
It's not about the leader, it's about the vision of the institution,
Yes.
making it happen. Now coming back to the subject of the season, which is changing the equation.
Yeah.
What does changing the equation mean to you in the public sector context? When it comes to the government, what do you understand and how do you define changing the equation?
So I love that wording that you chose, and it's very relevant today. I think when you change the equations, that you're changing the status quo, you're creating a bit of disruptions in a positive sense. That you're not going to sit down and have the same old situation and system in place that was there 5 years ago, because it's not adaptive to the times that we live in today. I think when you're in a future-oriented institution that is willing to innovate, give the space for creatives to be creative in designing strategies, designing working plans that are really empowered by their people. And that's what's going to transform your organization.
And I think, as you mentioned before, regarding the technological advancements and the region being at the center of it, and being even leading this era, the AI era, as we call it, I believe that also the changing the equation is already happening. It's already happening
100%.
when we are bringing into perspective the new technologies and ensuring that the citizens, not only the people responsible for these technologies, are adopting and understanding and seeing the value of what the government brings into the projects and how they're guiding this phase of these technological advancements.
100%. But I think it's even more than that, in the sense that the people are demanding change.
Exactly. Yes.
So you can't refuse the demand of the people. I think that's where things have completely changed. The perspective.
I've been working with the government in Kuwait for 10 years.
Wow, yeah.
And one of the major challenges that I've always seen, and it's stalling the digital transformation in Kuwait specifically, is the resistance to change. Yeah. Now, in the last 2 years almost, this is fundamentally changing. As you correctly said, the citizens and the users and the people are demanding that change and are demanding to embrace this new era that we are seeing globally happening.
That's so true.
Yeah. So I think the equation is already
changed. Yeah.
So now coming back to you and changing the equation, what equation did you change throughout your career and your journey, and what did you change intentionally?
That's an interesting question, Yasmine. It's a very deep question. I think I always changed, for me, is that I changed myself. Not in your true essence, but in my skill sets, growing, developing, self-reflecting. I think that's being intentional in your choices. And that, for me, has been something that really guides me all the time.
And I love that, one of the skills of this era is the learning agility and being able to be fast learning, especially now with the technological advancements that changing.
Yeah, it's became so much easier.
Yeah, exactly. And now, what's one shift you think women are leading in this specific era and this specific region?
I think there's so much. It's another great question, because women have been always, especially here in Kuwait, I can talk about, have been always active in the workforce. But they've not been those you have certain visible people, but mostly invisible in the back offices, but
the 400,000.
Exactly. But I think this is the era of women as well, because not only are we not scared of, having our voices heard, being heard, we're even being asked to, you know, to speak up. And I think that's something that didn't come natural in the beginning. And now it's becoming more and more natural for people. I think amplifying, women are great multipliers in the sense that they give space and empower people. And I think that's where the strength of women comes in.
I love this. And I believe also that women are multipliers.
Yeah, 100%.
And they augment, like AI, they augment
they augment.
whatever.
I think when you have a real woman who's a leader, they empower those around them.
What do you want the generation of women to understand about influence? Now talking about women power, and I love that woman era.
I think, especially for young women, I think when you're younger, I think you don't trust your voice as much. I think you need to be more confident, which is not always easy. And also you need to, like what we discussed before, you need to be, even if you're not ready, you need to put yourself out there and, try. And this is not only just for women, it's for anyone who's starting off their career, the youth especially. If you try, even if you fail, I think for me the best thing in life is failing, because that's it's possibilities. You can fail, but what do you do with that failure? And that's what makes the difference in a successful person or not. And that gives person resilience and adaptability mindset. And I think that I would tell young ladies and young people in general is that when they are especially starting out their career, put yourself out there, try, and develop and evaluate and just try and go for it.
We don't grow when things are at ease.
Yeah, 100%.
We grow when we face challenges. That's the only time that we grow.
Yeah, that's so true.
If leadership is a responsibility, not a title, right? We all agree to that.
Yeah, exactly.
What responsibility drives you the most?
For me, it's having this balance between empathy and purpose, and also having a heart-centered leadership. I think it's great, the era of authority, we needed that, but now we're in the next phase. And we need purpose, we need human-centered, especially with all the disruptions that are coming around us and uncertainty.
I want to stress on purpose. I want to ask, what's your purpose and what do you hope to leave behind in Kuwait digital transformation journey?
I think, for me, my purpose is to put the human first, the people. I think that's, for me, I think we are in that era. Yes, we're in the era of technology, AI, and all this, but the most important is not to leave the human behind, and the people is the most important thing.
Do you think we are behind on this specific purpose when it comes to putting humans first?
I don't think that we're behind. I think sometimes we forget the human element of things because we want to drive success, we want to drive technology, we want to drive many things. And then the human qualities, we tend to think that, okay, now with all the easy access of AI and expedites a lot of our everyday tasks. But that doesn't mean that humans are irrelevant. I think the creativity of humans, the storytelling of humans, the community of humans, I think that's what we need to concentrate, the values of humans, and not to forget those things as we move forward with the new technology. I'm not against technology, I'm a supporter of technology, but at the same time, it needs to go hand in hand with human judgment, again, the ethical guardrails, and a lot of other things, legislation in place.
And one of the things where strategies fail and the AI adoption fail is that we don't take citizens and the people into consideration. We design systems, but we don't get the feedback and we don't involve the citizens in designing these systems, to serve them.
Yeah.
So we want to serve them without getting them into the
inputs,
equation.
Yeah. And then it's a gap, right? And the distance is created.
Yeah. And now if we want to talk about the future and everything that we have discussed before, if transformation is fast, which is like the case now, but not sustainable.
Yeah.
How do you foresee the future that we are building?
It will crumble. I think without a sustainable and real transformation, like you asked the question before, the cosmetic or the real, I think without real, concrete, future, long-term transformation, you're going to be stagnant and you're going to be not only not going forward, you're going to move backwards. Yeah. And that will be a tragic. It's so much harder to catch up. When you're playing catch up, it's so much more difficult than being at the forefront of all these changes and embracing those changes.
Yeah, we should build a strong foundation. So we can move faster, even if it's slower in the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning.
It will be faster.
It needs to be based on something concrete.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, moving to the word, okay? I will say one word, and you will answer by one word.
Okay.
By what it means to you. Starting with trust.
It's earned.
Power.
Responsibility.
Fear.
Opportunity.
Influence.
Consistency.
Change.
It's a transformation.
Technology.
Enabler.
Influence.
Oh my God, that's so good. I think influence needs consistency.
Okay. A future.
Future is imagined realities, it's possibilities.
Resilience.
Adaptable.
Adarjan.
Love.
Leadership.
Orientation.
And woman.
Multiplier.
Now, if I want to ask some quick questions, and you will answer in very quick answers.
Okay.
One hard lesson that you learned.
Failures, like to adapt, to change, to get up from failures.
One moment that changed you permanently.
The death of a loved one.
Yeah.
Does.
Who was the first one that you lost?
The first one that really made me think about is my cousin recently. He was only 38, and just makes you reevaluate your life, because he's younger than me.
One fear you overcame.
Trying to do things the right way. When there's no right way,
One habit that always keeps you grounded.
I think meditating, to take time out and just to have that moment of silence and quiet.
A rule that you never break.
Do to others what you want them to do unto you. I think that's something I never break.
A misconception people have about you.
That being calm or kind is weakness.
Yeah. That's a misconception a lot of people have about a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%.
What makes you strong and who you are?
I think it's empathy, caring, really caring about people and future and how that relates to each other.
And what makes you soft, as you mentioned earlier?
I think being kind it might be perceived as softness, or being gentle is a softness, but I think that's what makes you a woman also and gives me a strength.
I think kindness is the soft power.
Yeah, and I think
the soft power that we have.
Sometimes people need that gentleness with their leaders. It's not always just, like the stick. You need also the other side of things.
What do you want your daughter or girls of the new generations to learn from you?
I think that I would like them to be, to take that risk, to speak up and do what they think, like that, what they want to do, to dream big. Because I think there's infinite possibilities and you're the creator of your life. So I think that, that when you create your destiny, your life, your reality, I think it's based on all the choices you make every day. And I think that's something
only exists here.
In the head, 100%. And I think that's something that we don't realize when we're young, and it's a sad thing.
Yeah, true. Now, if you just stand by the mirror and you are talking to your younger self, what's one sentence you would tell her?
I'll tell her, you create your reality and just dream big. Go for it.
And if it comes from the person you are now, but to tell her, what would you say?
I'll say the same thing in a different way. I'll say, like, just go for it. Take you can do things. There's no right time. Every time is right time. It's just the point of choice.
Sarah, thank you so much for this episode. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed our conversation, and I hope our young girls will learn a lot from the people first approach and leadership that you beautifully said and adopt in your journey. And it was a pleasure having you with me today.
It was such a pleasure, Yasmine. I really had a great time. And thank you for those really insightful questions. You made me think a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To you listening today, changing the equation doesn't start with waiting for permission or following a predefined path. It starts when you decide to challenge the status quo, think differently, and lead with purpose. Progress belongs to those who are willing to step forward, take responsibility, and reshape the future with intention. And that journey always begins with you.